which would make him the first Jewish Marvel hero.
Well, if you don't count Kitty Pryde.
Well, I mean, she's in the movies, but they never explicitly talk about her being Jewish.
Okay, that's true.
Come on, run it again. Do it again.
It's going to come up with the same results, dude. I told you this.
You're embarrassing yourself.
You're embarrassing yourself. It's called science, Tom.
Hey, guys. Well, I am super glad to see you didn't destroy the studio in thematic shenanigans this week, but what exactly are you yelling about?
Eli has a lie computer.
It's not a lie computer.
Okay, all right. So what?
Okay, so you know how this week's episode is about hankification?
Pankration.
Sure. Right. So I was wondering who would win in a fight between all of us?
So like battle royale or seated round?
Thank you. Yes, that matters.
I didn't say it didn't matter, Heath. Anyways, so, you know, you guys weren't here yet. So I busted out the supercomputer and I ran some simulations.
I feel like that's a bad use for our supercomputer.
Okay, so seeded rounds, Cecil wins in every combination.
Really? Not Tom?
Thank you.
I know. I thought it would be Tom too. But it turns out when they're paired together, Tom falls to his knees and mourning and gives up in all possible scenarios except the universe in which Cecil is his long lost father.
Yeah, I feel like we just wasted the computer's time with that one.
Okay, agree to disagree. But Battle Royale, fun fact, it's actually you, Noah, because Tom goes for Cecil first. He's too distracted to fall to his knees and give up. But then Cecil stabs him in the throat for a double KO.
Wait, why does Cecil have a knife?
Thank you. Yes. Eli says the computer cannot fathom a situation where Cecil doesn't have a knife.
Look, most people carry boot knives, okay?
Okay. Well, I still don't understand why Heath is so upset.
Oh, Heath is upset because there is no possible simulation where he wins any configuration. None of them.
Including the one where we're all Muppet babies and he's the same size.
Really? How is that possible?
Again, thank you, Noah. The computer's clearly broken.
Okay, I mean, I can clone up Muppet Baby versions of me, Tom, and Cecil, and Noah, and we can test it out.
Yeah, man, that sounds good.
I would watch that, yes.
That'd be fun as hell.
I just, you know what? We should record the podcast, right? I feel like we're running late. Let's just record the podcast.
No, this can wait, right?
Yeah, I'm fine waiting.
I said we have to record the podcast.
Okay.
Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts, because this is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Noah, and I'm going to be getting us ready to rumble tonight, but to do that, we're going to need a few fighters. First up in the red corner, two men who are pretty sure Smash Brothers was a recognized fighting style when they signed up, Heath and Eli.
Okay, yeah. My sexual style is also button mashing. If I'm being honest. It's both.
And if swallowing your opponent is wrong, I don't want to be right.
And in the blue corner, two men who have very different things in mind when they agreed to a sword fight, Cecil and Tom.
I would say on guard, but it's mostly guard. It's not a lot of sword. Not a lot of sword.
Don't let him lie to you. He knew exactly what I had in mind.
And of course, before we get started, I want to remind the listeners how bad it can go when podcasting and MMA get mixed together. And how much more profitable it is to suck. Anyway, to the extent that we don't suck, it's because of the support of our patrons. If you'd like to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around to the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Eli, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
Pankration.
Nation.
Thank you.
And Cecil, you either read an article about this or beat someone into submission and made them do it for you. Either way, are you ready to weigh in?
Finally, they have my natural weight class as a division, PT Cruiser weight.
All right, so where does our story start?
Okay, all the information I have about fighting sports has only been gleaned over like the last 10 years. About that long ago, I was introduced to the UFC, and I watched the sport of mixed martial arts on and off since then. I never really looked into like the origins of mixed martial arts, and I always sort of assumed, because it's somewhat of an implicit narrative in the UFC, that for the longest time, hand-to-hand fighting arts were all specialized. There was like a kicky one, a punchy one, a grabby one, and most of them really didn't take techniques and smash them together into one style until recently. But while doing research for an upcoming Gladiators episode, I came across an ancient fighting sport that surprisingly, well, to me at least, resembles modern day mixed martial arts.
Is it actual fighting, Cecil? Because I can confirm actual fighting has had kicks, punches, and grabbing for millennia, buddy.
For millennia? You can
style.
confirm that because you've been getting your ass kicked for millennia, Eli?
That too? That too. Not all the Highlanders have swords. I don't want to get into it.
Pankration is an old-timey, no-holds-barred fisticuffs. The term comes from ancient Greece, and it means all of power, which sounds like a bad translation of an RPG video game from Japan where somebody set us up the bomb. It was basically the UFC with fewer rules. The fighters could kick, punch, do joint locks, grapple, perform chokes, etc., etc.
Don't you dare hide nut shots behind et cetera, Cecil.
They started with doing that in the UFC.
It all started in the 7th century BCE. And if you are familiar at all with modern day mixed martial arts, you'll recognize a lot of these techniques, which makes the guy from the first UFC with the one boxing glove even more strange.
Art Jimerson, the boxer. Amazing. He was like, all right, I got a plan for this. I'm going to grapple against the greatest grappler in the world. I'm going to wear giant mittens while I do that. And his trainer was like, yeah, that's dumb. Don't do that. And Jimerson was like, okay, got it. Yeah. One giant mitten. Perfect.
It's the perfect crime.
Okay, it sounds bad, but in his MMA debut, he was doing some really terrible shit with one giant foam finger.
It's true.
So,
Now, the legend is that Heracles and the mythical founder of Athens, Theseus, each came up with the style. Sounds like a weird day, but whatever. Maybe they were like the precursors to the guy who sits in dark bars in Boston on Tuesday mornings. They didn't invent it together. They just kind of had like a when the rubber hits the road moment. Like two scientists from different parts of the world winning the Nobel Prize for the same thing in the same year, except this makes you lose a lot more brain cells.
So wait, so somebody had to come up with just beat the fuck out of each other in all the ways? I think that was a weird day for some Greek patent clerk. Like, no, dude, that's already.
Sorry, one of you is
Yeah.
one of you is fictional. Whose name do I put down?
They're both fictional.
For Theseus, the story goes that he created punching, kicking, and grabbing at the same time when he fought a minotaur in hand-to-hand combat in a labyrinth. Even though in the story, he smuggled a sword into the labyrinth and stabbed it to death. So
where did he smuggle it? Where was he smuggling it, Cecil?
Prison pocket. And in the Heracles story, he beats a lion unconscious with a club before strangling it with his bare hands. So both use weapons, but they are still credited with the creation of this sport of unarmed combat.
Okay, I like the weapons thing, though. If the UFC started every match with both fighters like spinning a weapon wheel and getting one random weapon, I'd watch that.
Amazing!
If it was like spiky ball on a stick versus one old-timey grenade. Okay.
Yeah.
One interesting.
2,
I like it.
5.
Back in the 7th century BCE, they had other fighting games. They had boxing and wrestling. Boxing was, we suspect, similar, but not exactly like modern boxing. They probably didn't have walkout songs or giant gold belts. They have a rough idea of the rule set, which included no wrestling, no gouging with the fingers. They didn't use a ring at all. They had no time limits on combat, no weight classes, and they aren't completely sure kicking was disallowed.
They had toe gouging, though.
One interesting rule was that the judge could just beat you with a switch if you broke the rules.
Interesting.
And then you could just do like a sudden death round if the fight was going on too long and just exchange unguarded punches, which sounds pretty much like every Rocky movie, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Oh, God, this unrelenting blood sport is getting boring. All right, how about if instead of boxing, we just see whose brain gives out first? That's the...
Yeah.
Other guys like, no, that's the NFL. We got to do it different.
Do you ever watch those face slap tournaments?
Yes.
Where it's just like you have to
Oh my
take
God,
the
they're
face
the best.
slap.
Yes.
Apparently that was the lightning round at the end of this thing.
Okay, now I've got to write one on the face slapping.
Cecil, you also have to write one about that combat arm wrestling.
Yes, the fight of punching, arm wrestling,
That's the
chest
greatest
boxing.
thing in the entire world.
There's so many different ones that are amazing. Okay, so wrestling.
Wait, there's arm wrestling where like you arm wrestle with one arm and you just punch
fight
with the other arm?
They
fight with the
strap
other
your
one.
arms together, then you arm wrestle, and also you kick and punch each other with the other arms, and whoever either like dies or loses arm wrestling loses.
Okay. Can you do toe gouging?
Wrestling was also similar to modern analogs, not the WWE, but like the NCAA. You couldn't intentionally hit someone, you couldn't bite or eye gouge, you couldn't grab the genitals. And again, a ref armed with a whip or a switch kept the combatants in line. But, and here's a quote, all other holds intended to persuade the opponent to concede defeat through pain or fear are permitted
Fear.
and an integral part of the contest. End quote.
So I don't know. I tried.
Points were scored by pinning your opponents back on the ground, making them concede, or shoving or throwing your opponent outside the designated fighting area. The fighting area was 28.5 meters square, which is about 2 basketball courts side by side.
Okay, that feels too big. It's just going to be a lot of the smaller guy running until he wins by bigger guy vomiting. I feel like that's the strategy, right?
Pankration was a hybrid of these two, like modern day mixed martial arts. They would allow strikes of any kind, grappling, submissions, knockouts, joint locks, chokes, you name it, they allowed it. The fights would go until someone was either knocked out or they gave up. And they could do small joint manipulation. So in modern mixed martial arts, most rule sets don't allow you for bending or breaking fingers or toes. But in Pankration, combatants could do this all they wanted. They couldn't, however, gouge the eyes or bite. Those 2 attacks were forbidden. I will say that Sparta didn't disallow these things. So if you really want an eye patch, you could head over there.
I want to meet the guy who insisted that toe pulling be allowed. I want to meet the guy who stood his ground at that meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Part of me doesn't even believe Sparta is real. Like that whole mythology just reads like a bunch of like free speech, libertarian, crypto, biohacking dude bros invented their own fighty Atlantis. Like it just seems fake as fuck.
Tom, I've got great news for you.
Now, while this was a formal sport, it was also just something soldiers trained in. They would use their pankration training when they would lose their weapons or if they broke. The legend is that at Thermopylae, when the 300 Spartans were defending the gate, they fought with their bare hands after all their weapons broke. Other ancient historians note that the thing that made a good soldier a good fighter was their hand-to-hand skill and thus their ability in this sport. Alexander the Great was also a fan of the sport itself, and his troops practiced the art.
So I know this isn't exactly what you mean, but now I'm picturing a Spartan at Thermopylae going, no biting, time out.
I know the Battle of Thermopylae will be its own episode someday, but it took us slightly longer to lose than expected. Really doesn't feel like the epic victory history makes it out to be.
Okay, speak for yourself, because if I last slightly longer than expected, I count that an epic victory. I don't have a lot of victories.
Gravy. You're welcome.
Pankration competition was not separated by weight classes. And like other fighting sports, when TV didn't exist, it had no time limit. So the early UFC, where Keith Hackney fought a 600-pound sumo wrestler, that could have totally happened back then. They did, however, split up the combatants based on age. There was an adult and a boys division, but the article doesn't mention where the cutoff age is. This was a very popular event in the Olympics back then, but they also had pankration tournaments throughout the year. The ritual for setting up the pairings went like this. The organizers would get bean-sized tokens and inscribe a letter from the alphabet on 2 of them, and then keep going with different letters until there were enough beans for everyone. Then they would drop all those tokens into a big silver urn, and each combatant would come up, pray to Zeus, and take one. Now, it sounds like the judges with the whips wouldn't let them look at them, until everybody had drawn one. Then, once everyone had one, they would look and the judges would call the A pairing, the B pairing, etc. Then they would fight a single elimination tournament round against their opponents to submission and then join the group of winners, line up, and draw another stone to fight again.
It still sounds like a much more civil use of the Greek alphabet than a fraternity rush, though.
Yeah, exactly, for sure.
This would go on until there was a winner. So 16 people meant you fought 4 fights, up to 32 meant you fought 5, etc. You could fight multiple knockdown drag-ass fights with no weight limit, no time limit, where your fingers could get tied into a knot by your opponent in one fucking day. You could get lucky and draw a bye fight, meaning you could sit around and automatically advance to the next round. And theoretically, you could have multiple bye fights in the same day. So someone advancing without having drawn a bye fight and winning the tournament was something of a bragging point.
See, this is how you end up with a ninja world champion, people. You got to come up with a better system. There are better systems.
Very specialized joke, but it's a good one.
There are a ton of artistic renderings of the combat, so historians know how the fights went and what particular techniques were used. One important note is that the fighters appear to be 100% nude. The article itself does not say that the sport took place naked, but the images show naked dudes fisticuffing. I found another article that mentions that some Greeks participated in the contest with a thong called I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, a kinodesme? I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. It was tied tightly around the part of the foreskin that extended beyond the head of the penis.
Hold on.
Yeah. And then the thong would then either be attached to the waistband to draw your dick up and expose the scrotum, or tied to the base of the penis so that the penis appeared to curl upwards.
Okay. Uniform. That's cool. I had an idea. What if nothing ties to my dick while we're doing scrotum out or dick curled up? This is serious. We're doing uniforms. Why would those be the only options? That doesn't make any sense.
You should at least be able to go off to the side with it, right?
Yeah. Thank you. That's what I meant.
Shirts versus foreskins.
This would 100% work though, because if some dude wanted to fight me and then he rigged up his dick so it was tied to the mizzen mast like a sailor in a storm, I would concede immediately. Right?
Yeah. Pain or fear. Jesus. I get it.
Right. Now I want a dick spinnaker.
Okay. The fighting stance looks pretty traditional. Left foot forward so you could jab with the weaker hand, and then you could cock back the right to perform the right cross with the power hand. The weight was mostly distributed on the rear leg, allowing you to kick easier with the front foot or use the knee to block low kicks. Kicking was an important part of the fighting, and someone adept at kicking could easily use this skill to carry them onto victory. Doesn't sound like it was the preferred way to win, though, as some of the commentary at the time praising kicking is sarcastic. One of the most prolific writers in antiquity, Galen, jokingly mentions in one of his works that they gave the Pankration prize to a donkey because he was so adept at kicking.
There's always one guy doing the leg sweep over and over in the corner traffic. That's always going to happen.
And then the guy on the side, put him in a body bag of Megnanon. Fuck. Doesn't ring.
Looks like the liver kick was alive and well back then. To those not familiar, one of the techniques of disabling someone in a combat sport is to kick the upper right quadrant of the abdomen to strike the part of the body that houses the liver. If done correctly, it basically incapacitates the opponent. It punches or it kicks the fight right out of him. So the front kick was a popular technique and countered by sidestepping and kicking the attacker in the leg, or just grabbing his leg and using that for a single leg takedown.
That's fine, but the double leg takedown is way more effective. I don't know why you would.
Heath, have you been training for panko breadcrumbs the entire time by tumping up your liver? You have to tell us. It's like being a cop.
Yes.
Okay.
They used arm locks like the modern arm bar or the Kimura, where one fighter bends the other fighter's arm behind their back, putting the shoulder into stress. They would do full rear naked chokes, which really makes a lot of sense when you consider the uniform. Leg locks, which stress the knees and the ankles, were also popular, and also a way to get your opponent to submit. The fighters incidentally signaled that they had enough when they stuck their index finger up in the air, like you're signaling a bartender to get another drink.
Okay, now I'm picturing the referee being too busy chatting up some pretty 23-year-old to notice me tap out, and I get strangled to death. It's like, I know you can't see her belly button, but please.
I'm just picturing Art Jimerson trying to do the one finger with the mittens on. Like,
damn it. Will you arm the other bar? I'll give you the other arm.
In modern MMA rules, you're not allowed to just grab someone else's trachea or gouge it with your hand. Chokes in modern MMA are not actually cutting off the air supply to the victim, but instead cutting off the blood supply to the brain and thus rendering them unconscious.
Safety. It's safety first, yeah.
But in pankration, you could just reach out and pluck a motherfucker's Adam apple. And they had
this one's not ripe yet. Put it back.
Yeah. It's like that scene in fucking like Roadhouse where he tears the guy's throat out. They also had another factor in the fight, which was the sun. So one of the strategies of the fighters was just to try to get the opponent facing the sun and always have their own back to it.
Interesting. All right, well, Cecil's got us all rethinking about our own tactics here, so I think we're going to need a pause for a little apropos of nothing.
Good evening, brave combatants, and welcome to the first ever pachinko tournament.
Hurrah!
Indeed. Now, I shall be your referee, of course. A few rules. You may punch and kick, but no biting or eye gouging. For if you do, I shall slap you with this stick. Do you all understand me? Indeed. Also, no attacking of the genitals. Toe locks are allowed, but teeth locks are not. Should I catch you employing one, I shall slap you with this stick. If you wish to yield, place a finger up like so, and I shall slap your opponent with a stick to signal that the match is over.
Okay, sorry, but...
Yes, the big burly man brought you the beer.
No, it's Nick. Name's Nick.
You say so. You had a question.
Yeah, it just seems like this is less of a manly fighting contest, more really of a chance for you to slap us with sticks.
Slap us with sticks. Thank you. Everything is a slap us with sticks.
No, don't be silly. This is the manliest, most brutal sport in history, and the sticks are merely to keep your wild impulses at bay. You will be filled with such bloodlust as you tussle that this is my only possible means of interception.
That's fine.
Let's tie your foreskins to your buttholes and we'll be ready to begin.
What? Seriously?
You need uniforms!
And we're back. When we last left off, Cecil was inadvertently pointing out that he's given way more thought to how best to kill us in one-on-one combat than we've given to how to survive said combat. Not sure if that was his intent. That sure was the outcome. Anyway, Cecil, you have the floor. You can talk about any damn thing you want, buddy.
We'll do some angles, bud? Huh?
Let's talk about some of the famous pankration fighters.
Sure.
I have milk money. You want? Blowjob?
I want to...
Well, now we've got to pause. What the hell?
Now we got to wait.
Yeah, man, Heath will give you a blowjob.
Yeah. So I want to start out by saying I'm not fucking Greek. I have no idea how to pronounce this stuff. So tweet at someone else with your boring fucking pronunciation comments that you're going to tweet at us with.
Yeah. And before you complain, keep in mind, they could have let me pronounce these names.
Right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
And keep in mind how much thought he's given to like one-on-one combat techniques.
Exactly.
So the first guy is Theagenes of Thasos. He was supposed to have some legendary strength. He was so strong that at age 9, he carried home a bronze statue. No comment on how big that statue actually was.
Oh.
That would seem important.
I know.
That
They
would
don't even
seem
mention how
very
big.
important.
It must
I
be
feel like I
very
did
big.
that too, yeah.
Like it's the size of like an Oscar, and like everyone's just like,
Theagenes was an Olympic pankration combatant, one in that sport as well as many others. Years after his death, there was a statue erected in his honor, and someone who held a grudge against the Olympian decided to scourge it. Well, it fell on the guy and he died. And then they put the statue on trial and found it guilty and threw it into the sea. They only retrieved it, though, because an oracle said it was a bad omen to leave it there.
Jesus Christ.
Hey, say what you will about the NFL. They've yet to have a player kill someone after they die. So,
True.
second place.
True.
You know, as a nation founded on Greek ideals, I know we're supposed to venerate ancient Greek logic, but like when a society declares a statue guilty of murder and then angrily drowns that statue before then thinking better of it to avoid bad luck, it does make me begin to question some things.
It should.
So, Tom, 3 years ago, we did a whole episode on America carrying out capital punishment on a fucking elephant, and you're beginning to question those things? Just
The
now?
elephant was alive.
Another famous fighter was Clitomachos. He wound up winning both boxing and the pankration events at 2 consecutive Olympics in 216 and 212 BCE.
216 BCE was Olympiad negative CCXVI.
Yes.
I didn't know what they were counting down for, but they...
He won the pankration event at another big Olympic-like event 3 times. And yet at another, he won the wrestling, boxing, and pankration events all in the same day. The fighter was praised by later writers because of his temperance, and they claimed that this was the reason he excelled at sports. He was so dedicated to, quote, abstinence from sex, saying that he would even avert his eyes if he saw 2 dogs coupling, end quote.
Really? Okay. Watching dog mating. I guess that's why I didn't become a pro athlete. I was abstaining from all the other stuff you just mentioned.
Okay, so I feel like the secret to his success in the ring is just having a fucking iron rod boner and tomato-sized balls everywhere he goes, right? You get too close and he just squirts them away.
This next one is some tall tale shit, but it's hilarious, so I included it. Polydamas of Scotusa? I don't know, whatever. He's just this gigantic dude. Supposedly, he killed a lion with his bare hands like Heracles, and he stopped a runaway chariot at a full gallop, which is pretty easy if you have the reins, but they don't actually specify
Yeah, what
that.
size was the statue again? Yeah.
Also, what size was the lion? Maybe it was like a little lion cub.
It's easier the younger it is.
Kind of a dick move, really.
He was a champion pankration fighter, and one summer, he's hanging out with his friends in a cave when the roof collapsed. Anyway, he thought
So it's gonna be on fire.
he was such a badass that he could just reach up and hold it up with his own strength, and he was squished.
Yeah, because that's the earth. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, actually, it turns out the abstinent guy was the one that was load bearing.
That's such a good joke. That's so good.
It's my best joke of this
Load bearing.
episode. Like, there's nothing left.
Load bearing. So love it.
It's a pun. That's a real pun.
It's
That's
so
awesome.
good. It's a real one. It's good. Jesus Christ, these names. Timanthes of Cleone was also a champion pankration fighter that came to a bad end. He had retired from sports and decided to stay in shape by drawing back a large bow every day. World's first bow flex. Anyway, he's called away from his home for a while, and I guess he didn't want to change up his workout regime, so he just skipped it. And when he came back, he just no longer had the strength to pull the string back, so he, quote, lit a fire and threw himself alive into it.
Jesus.
End quote.
Yikes. Yeah, your Peloton actually starts recommending the same thing if you haven't used it in 2 weeks.
Diazippus was so fucking good at his sport that at one of the Olympic Games, no one challenged him and he won by default. His exploits in the sport were known far and wide. Later on, after he'd quit fighting, he attended a banquet put on by Alexander the Great. The problem was that the Macedonians thought they were all better fighters than Diazippus. So they jawed him and they mocked him. One of the soldiers, Caragus, got super drunk and challenged him to a duel. And Alexander the Great tries to separate them and tries to stop the fight, but they went on with it because literally every other person there wanted it to happen.
Okay, I was about to get mad if it didn't happen.
Right?
It happens, right?
The bout was scheduled out, and the day of the fight comes. The Macedonian, Caragus, came to the fight in full armor. He had a full bronze shield, a pike in one hand, javelin in the other. He also had a sword on his hip and a scabbard. Diazippus comes with a purple cloak in his hand, a big club in the other, and he's naked as a jaybird, but he did take time to slather oil all over his naked body.
Wow. Didn't even wear the fucking foreskin scrunchie, huh?
He just walks up to the fight, starts locking eyes with the other guy while he uses the club to spread the oil on and then throws the club away. Oh my God, he's throwing away. It was just an oil club. Oh, shit.
Power move.
He's got broken glass and honey, and he dips his hands in honey, but then just slathers himself in honey. He doesn't use the broken glass. Like kickboxer. But different.
The fight starts. And Karagas throws the javelin at Diazepis, which he easily dodges. Diazepis lunges forward before the guy can put the pike in his fighting hand, and he shatters it with the club. Grabs double underhooks as the surprised Macedonian tries to draw his sword, and then drops the guy on the ground. He then takes away all his weapons, stands up, puts his foot on his throat, but he's stopped from killing him by Alexander the Great, who ends the contest, declaring Diazepis the winner. After it was all over, the shamed Macedonians conspired to frame Diazepis by hiding a golden cup in his bed and accusing him of thievery. He said that he was set up in a letter to Alexander, and then he killed himself by falling on a sword in disgrace.
He shatters as he falls onto it. Shit. Okay, where's the pike guy? I have a weird favor to ask him.
He's so greasy, he just slips to one side than the other of the sword. Just sliding.
God. Let's do the honey. We'll use the honey.
This last one's my favorite. Rikion was a Pankration champion in the 52nd Olympics and in 572 BCE. He returned to the next Olympics and defended his title. Made it to the finals against another fighter. During the fight, the other fighter grabbed him with his legs around his torso and started choking his neck with his arms. Rikion, while being actively choked, attacked the man's foot and in one account broke his ankle. The man was forced to submit, and when they come over to congratulate the champ, they find he died from the choke after his opponent had been submitted.
Oh, Jesus.
But he won. They gave him the gold medal, and I have no idea how they weekended Bernied him up to the dais.
All right, so if you had to summarize what you learned in one sentence, what would that sentence be, Cecil?
Taking on all comers has nothing to do with clinching your foreskin closed with a leather strap.
But not for you, maybe.
So are you ready for the quiz?
I'm ready to take a pounding.
All right, Cecil. The Greeks were absolutely not fucking around, and they fed their warriors appropriately. What was the Greek pancreas fighter's favorite food?
Pancreas?
A, the club sandwich.
Okay,
B,
fair.
Broiled pike.
All right.
C, asparagus spears. Or D, death by chocolate.
I wonder if these are like rock, paper, scissors, like club beats pike or something.
Right, sure.
I got to go with asparagus spears. It's the one that made Heath chuckle, so I like it.
Very healthy. Very healthy.
Yeah.
Good choice, my friend.
All right, Cecil. So obviously these fights were basically just aggressive sex with a trophy at the end, let's be honest. Which of the following is the best dad joke I just made up about martial arts porn? A, Mung Fu Hustle. B, Drunken Masturbation. C, Crouching Tiger Hidden Dragon. D, Poontang Sudo. Tang Sudo is a style, apparently. E, Grundle in the Bronx. Or F, 2 girls, 1 capoeira.
Oh, it's so good. They're all very good. You're shitting on yourself here, but I got to say F. 2 girls, 1 cup, O'Hara.
Well done. That is correct.
All right, Cecil. What's a good name for a prank ration fighter?
Jesus Christ.
A, out your my knees. B, Plato. Or C,
Okay, I like Plato.
Aristotle.
I think all 3 of them are very good, but ouch my knees.
Correct.
Or not. Either
Not
or.
correct.
It's very
That
funny.
sounds like Eli just won. Who would you like to hear an essay from next week,
Tom,
Eli?
I want Tom to do an essay.
Yay!
All right. Well, for Cecil, Eli, Heath, and Tom, I'm Noah. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back next week, and by then, Tom will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, you can hear more from Tom and Cecil on the Cognitive Dissonance podcast, and you can hear more from Heath, Eli, and myself on the Scathing Atheist, God Awful Movies, The Skeptocrat, and D&D Minus. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod, or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. Actually, that's not an or, just do both. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes, be sure to check out citationpod.com. Hey, Heath, are you in here, man?
Yeah. What do you want? What's going on?
Hey, buddy, we just wanted to say that you did a great job out there, and none of us expected Muppet Baby Miss Piggy to know karate.
Yeah, in hindsight, that's totally on us.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I feel like that's totally cheating, right?
Wait, you want to go get some ice cream? Get some ice cream.
No, I should probably go to the hospital.
Yeah, that's
very
fair.
injured.
Yeah, we understand.
Maybe ice cream after?
Totally.
Yeah.
Sprinkles.
Salt and straw?